In the remote wilderness of Earth, under the canopy of an ancient forest, the night sky was pierced by a dazzling streak of light. The luminous object, a sleek spaceship with contours that whispered of technologies far beyond human understanding, hurtled towards the ground at a fatal speed. Inside, Queen Lysara of the Zeltrons clung to her control console, her normally composed features twisted in desperation. She was far from her galaxy, and her ship was failing. As the ship collided with the forest floor, trees splintered and earth heaved, a silent testament to the brutal impact. The ship, a marvel of alien engineering, managed to distribute the force of the crash, saving Lysara's life but not without cost. As the dust settled and the echo of the crash faded into the night, Lysara lay unconscious amid the wreckage of her once proud vessel. Miles away, Tom, a reclusive human who shunned the chaos of modern life for the tranquility of the wilderness, was jolted awake by the crash. He grabbed his flashlight and old rifle, the remnants of his former life as a soldier, and set out towards the disturbance. His heart pounded with a mix of fear and curiosity, the instincts of a soldier long dormant now surging back to life. As Tom approached the smoking crater, the sight that greeted him was otherworldly. The alien ship, its surface shimmering with a metallic sheen under the moonlight, was unlike anything he had ever seen. Cautiously, he circled the vessel, his military training taking over as he scanned for threats. Finding an opening in the wreckage, he peered inside and saw her, Queen Lysara. Lysara's appearance was as striking as it was foreign. Her skin glowed with a soft luminescence, her features sharp and regal. Tom knew in his bones that she was important and in need of help. Without a second thought, he entered the ship, his human instincts to aid overpowering his sense of danger. Carefully, he lifted the alien queen, surprised by the lightness of her body, and carried her out of the ship. Once outside, he laid her gently on the mossy earth, checking for signs of life. She was alive, but barely. As he contemplated his next move, Lysara's eyes fluttered open. They were a deep violet, filled with confusion and fear, but also a palpable intelligence. She studied Tom, her gaze intense yet vulnerable. "Where am I?" Her voice was a melody, the words clear though accented with the sing-song quality of her native tongue. "You're on Earth," Tom replied, his voice steady. "You crashed. I'm here to help you." Lysara's mind raced. Earth was a primitive planet by Zeltron standards, not equipped to handle interstellar visitors or their technology. Yet here she was, her life saved by an Earthling. "Why?" was all she could manage to ask. Tom looked into her eyes, feeling a connection that transcended their species. "Because you needed help," he said simply. As they spoke, far away across the galaxy, the news of Queen Lysara's disappearance had reached her home planet. The Zeltron Council was in turmoil, and her husband King Varos felt the sharp sting of betrayal. His queen, his partner in ruling their people, was gone. The shock of it was profound, but what pained him more was the uncertainty of her fate. Back on Earth, under the cover of the forest and the gaze of the stars, a bond began to form between the alien queen and the primitive human. Unbeknownst to them, this unexpected encounter would change not only their lives, but potentially the future of two worlds. As the night grew deeper, Tom knew he had to get Lysara to safety, away from the open vulnerability of the crash site. With a resolve born of newfound purpose, he helped her to her feet, ready to protect this alien queen with his life if necessary. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but for now, they had each other. And sometimes, in the vast and different universe, that is enough. Tom led Lysara through the dense undergrowth, his familiarity with the terrain evident as he deftly avoided pitfalls and navigated through the darkest parts of the forest. Lysara, still weak from the crash and her unfamiliarity with Earth's gravity and atmosphere, relied heavily on Tom's strength and guidance. Her mind, however, was as sharp as ever, trying to piece together the series of events that had led her to this unlikely refuge. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, a stark contrast to the sterile and controlled environment of her ship. Every sound of the forest was new and somewhat alarming to Lysara, from the distant howl of a predator to the rustle of leaves caused by nocturnal creatures. Despite the dangers, she felt an inexplicable sense of security with Tom. His calm demeanor and methodical approach to every rustle and snap of twigs were reassuring. After what felt like hours, they reached a small cabin hidden amongst the trees. It was rustic, made of logs and with a simplicity that spoke of practicality rather than comfort. Tom ushered her inside, where the air was warmer and smelled of wood smoke. "I built this place with my own hands," Tom explained as he lit a few lamps, casting a gentle glow around the room. "It's safe here." Lysara looked around, taking in the sparse interior. There was a fireplace, a bed, a table, and some chairs. It was basic, but after the sterile corridors of her ship, it felt welcoming. Tom noticed her surveying the room and added, "It's not much, but it's home." He moved to the fireplace, where he started a fire. The flames took hold quickly, crackling and sending shadows dancing across the walls. As the room warmed, Lysara felt her muscles relax slightly. "Tom, why did you help me? You knew nothing about me. I could have been a danger to you." Tom paused, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. "In the army, I learned to assess situations quickly. When I saw your ship, I knew it wasn't a weapon or a threat. It was a wreck, and nobody deserves to die alone in a wreck." His words struck a chord with Lysara. On Zeltron, where her every move was calculated and every decision weighed for its impact on her people, such straightforward kindness was rare. "Thank you," she murmured, feeling the weight of her title and responsibilities as alien here as the stars seen through Earth's sky. Changing the subject, she asked, "What should we do now? If my people realize I'm missing, they might come looking for me." "We need to assess your ship. If there's a way to communicate with them without exposing Earth to potential harm, we should find it." Tom's tone was practical. "Rest tonight. Tomorrow, we'll return to your ship and see what can be salvaged." That night, as Lysara lay in a bed too soft compared to her sleep chamber back on her ship, her thoughts were a whirl of scenarios involving rescue and escape. Meanwhile, Tom sat outside watching the stars and wondering about the far-off worlds they belonged to. He pondered the ironies of life that led an alien queen into his care, and despite the gravity of their situation, he couldn't help but feel a profound connection to the universe's mysterious workings. As the fire died down and the cabin grew quiet, both the human and the alien found themselves not just crossing the spatial distance between stars, but bridging the vast expanse between two very different lives. The morning sun filtered through the dense canopy as Tom and Lysara prepared to revisit the crash site. Despite her regal bearing, Lysara had insisted on carrying some of the load, tying a makeshift backpack with supplies around her shoulders. She had spent the night processing her situation and had awoken with a resolve to face whatever lay ahead. Tom admired her resilience, understanding that her role as a leader had prepared her well for adversity. As they approached the site, the morning light illuminated the torn earth and shattered trees, showcasing the violent arrival of Lysara's spacecraft. Birds had begun to circle above, curious about the intrusion in their domain. Tom surveyed the surroundings carefully before stepping closer to the wreckage. "We should be quick about this. It's not just animals that might be drawn to the crash." Lysara nodded, her eyes scanning the technology strewn around them. The ship was a sophisticated maze of Zeltron engineering, much of it specialized for interstellar travel and communication. They needed to find the communication array, if it was still intact. Together, they navigated through twisted metal and broken panels until they reached the ship's core. The communication array, miraculously, had survived the crash mostly intact. Lysara's face lit up with a mixture of relief and determination. "This is what we need. I can send a distress signal to Zeltron, but it will be weak. Our systems are designed not to reveal our location unless absolutely necessary." Tom watched as she worked on the array, her fingers moving with precision over the alien controls. He kept watch, his senses alert to any sounds that might suggest they were no longer alone. After several minutes of tense work, Lysara stepped back, her face tense. "It's done. I've sent a signal, but who knows how long before they receive it or can organize a rescue." "Let's hope it gives us enough time to prepare for whatever comes next," Tom replied, his mind racing through possible scenarios. none of which were particularly comforting. Lysara looked at him, her violet eyes thoughtful. "Tom, my being here might bring danger to your world. I cannot allow my problems to endanger Earth. If my people come—" "We'll handle that when the time comes," Tom interjected firmly. "For now, let's focus on keeping you safe and hidden. Can any of your technology help us obscure the site, make it less visible from above?" She nodded, leading him to another part of the wreckage. After some more rummaging, she retrieved a device that looked like a thin sheet of metal. She unfolded it, and it expanded, shimmering slightly in the sunlight. "This is a cloaking sheet. It can camouflage the wreckage, blend it into the surroundings." Working together, they draped the sheet over the remains of the spacecraft. Almost immediately, the wreckage seemed to vanish, mirroring the forest around it perfectly. Tom stepped back, impressed. "That'll do it. Let's head back. We need to stay vigilant. Keep an eye out for any response to your signal." As they made their way back to the cabin, Lysara's mind was torn between hope for rescue and fear of what her presence might mean for this unassuming planet. Beside her, Tom remained watchful, his experience as a soldier mixing with a newfound sense of duty to protect his unexpected charge. Back at the cabin, as they prepared for the uncertain days ahead, both were unaware that far above them, a Zeltron reconnaissance probe had just entered the Earth's atmosphere, drawn by the faint distress signal pulsing silently from the hidden wreckage. The probe's arrival marked the beginning of an even greater challenge, one that would test not just the bond between a human and an alien queen, but the very understanding between their worlds. The reconnaissance probe, a sleek silver sphere no larger than a basketball, hovered silently through the Earth's atmosphere. Its sensors were finely tuned to detect the signal that Lysara had sent, and it zeroed in on the camouflaged wreckage with unerring accuracy. Unknown to Tom and Lysara, the probe was not just a passive observer. It was equipped with surveillance technology capable of gathering detailed data about the environment and any biological entities it encountered. Back at the cabin, Tom and Lysara were deep in discussion, poring over maps and schematics Lysara had salvaged from her ship. They were plotting out potential safe zones and discussing strategies to avoid detection. Tom was laying out a contingency plan when Lysara's sharp ears picked up a faint whirring sound, nearly imperceptible against the backdrop of forest noises. "What was that?" she asked, her body tensing. Tom listened intently. After a few seconds, he shook his head. "I don't hear anything, but let's not take any chances." He peered out the window, scanning the woods, his hand instinctively moving towards the rifle leaning against the wall. Meanwhile, the probe had positioned itself above the cabin, its sensors penetrating the wooden structure to analyze the life forms inside. It recorded their heat signatures, their movements, and even their heart rates. This data was promptly transmitted back to Zeltron, where military commanders assessed the situation, puzzled by the presence of an unknown species alongside their queen. The probe continued its surveillance, moving closer to get a more detailed scan. The whirring sound grew slightly louder, and this time Tom heard it too. "We've got company," he said, eyes narrowing. He grabbed his rifle and motioned for Lysara to stay behind him. They exited the cabin cautiously, Tom leading with his rifle raised. Above them, the probe was now clearly visible, its metallic surface reflecting the sunlight as it hovered ominously. "Zeltron technology?" Tom asked without taking his eyes off the object. "Yes, but I didn't expect them to send a probe. It means they're still cautious about revealing our location to anyone else," Lysara explained, her voice low. "Can you communicate with it? Tell it to back off?" Tom asked, his finger on the trigger, though he doubted his rifle could do much against the advanced technology. Lysara shook her head. "It doesn't work like that. It's likely only transmitting data back. But let me try something." She pulled a small device from her pocket, her fingers moving quickly over its surface. After a moment, the probe's lights flickered, and it began to wobble in the air. "What did you do?" Tom asked, watching as the probe struggled to maintain its position. "I've scrambled its sensors. It won't be able to transmit anything coherent back to Zeltron for now. But they'll know something is wrong. They might send more probes, or worse."
Lysara warned, her eyes reflecting the gravity of their situation. "We need to move," Tom decided quickly. "We'll head to one of the safe zones you marked. Pack only what you need. We have to stay ahead of them." They hurried back into the cabin, gathering supplies and essential equipment. Lysara glanced at the small home that had become her sanctuary on this strange planet, a pang of regret passing through her. She had hoped for a peaceful resolution, a simple rescue. Now she feared that her presence on Earth might bring conflict to this world. As they set out towards a more remote location, the disabled probe sent a final burst of garbled data back to Zeltron before falling silent, its systems too scrambled to repair itself. High above, the decision-makers on Zeltron prepared their next move, their actions guided by a protocol that prioritized the safety of their queen, but knew nothing of the world she now depended on. Tom and Lysara moved swiftly through the underbrush, the dense foliage of Earth's wilderness enveloping them as they made their way toward a designated safe zone. Tom's knowledge of survival tactics blended seamlessly with the advanced technology Lysara brought from her world, creating a unique synergy that enhanced their chances of staying undetected. The terrain grew rougher, the forest deeper and darker as they ventured further away from any traces of civilization. Lysara, though physically less accustomed to the taxing demands of Earth's environment, adapted quickly, her determination fueled by the urgency of their situation. As they paused for a brief rest near a creek, Lysara deployed a small spherical device that hovered around them, emitting a soft, pulsating light. "It's a shielding device," she explained. "It masks our thermal signatures and emits a sound frequency that's disorienting to most tracking technologies." Tom nodded, impressed by the gadget but concerned about the reliance on alien technology in such a primitive setting. "We can't stay on the run forever. What's the long-term plan? If your people escalate their search, they won't stop at probes." Lysara looked thoughtful, her gaze fixed on the gently flowing water. "My society values its members highly, especially members of the ruling class. They will be cautious, but their patience won't last forever. We need to establish communication on our terms. We must convince them that I am safe and negotiating for a peaceful resolution." Tom considered this, his mind racing through possible scenarios. "We need leverage. Something that assures your people you're not just safe, but that initiating an aggressive rescue would cost them. Yes, and we might have just the thing." Lysara's voice was low as she pulled up data on another device, showing Tom a series of schematics. "Before I left, my team was working on experimental technology that could benefit from Earth's unique properties. If we offer this as a joint research opportunity, it might shift their perspective from a rescue mission to a diplomatic one." Tom looked at the schematics, barely understanding the complexity. "You think they'd go for it?" "It's worth a try. But first, we need a secure way to communicate that doesn't involve your being found or my people taking drastic steps." Their conversation was cut short by a rustling in the nearby bushes. Instinctively, Tom raised his rifle, his eyes scanning the dense foliage. The wildlife on Earth was often unpredictable, and though the rustling might be just a small animal, the current tension had heightened his alertness. Lysara stood quietly, her device in hand, ready to activate another function if the threat was from her world. The rustling grew louder, then stopped abruptly. A deer emerged from the bushes, looked around, and sensing the humans, darted back into the forest. Tom lowered his rifle, letting out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "We'll need to find a place to set up camp soon, somewhere we can defend if necessary." Lysara agreed, and they continued their trek. The chosen safe zone was a small cave hidden behind a waterfall, an ideal spot for its natural concealment and barrier against surveillance. As they approached, the roar of the waterfall grew louder, a sound that promised a measure of safety. Once inside, they explored the cave, finding it dry and spacious enough for their needs. Tom started gathering materials to create a camouflaged entrance, while Lysara set up their communication and surveillance technologies. As night fell, the cave became a hub of dim light and whispered plans. Outside, the natural barrier of the waterfall masked their presence, giving them a precious, albeit temporary, respite.
Here, they would make their stand, forging a plan that could bridge the vast cultural and technological gap between their worlds. Inside the shelter of the waterfall-cloaked cave, Tom and Lysara worked tirelessly under the cover of night, setting up their makeshift command center. The cave, with its natural acoustic barrier, offered them a secluded spot to discuss and deploy their strategies without the fear of eavesdropping technologies. Lysara had laid out the components of a makeshift communication system designed to interface with her planet's technology in a controlled manner. "We need to initiate a secure channel, one that doesn't give away our precise location," she explained, her fingers deftly connecting devices with a practiced ease. Tom watched, learning. His role as protector now expanded to include technician under Lysara's tutelage. The air in the cave was cool, the constant mist from the waterfall maintaining a damp chill that contrasted with their intense focus. As Lysara powered up the communication system, a soft glow emanated from the device, casting eerie shadows on the cave walls. "Here goes nothing," Lysara murmured, initiating the sequence that would send a carefully encoded message to her home planet. The device hummed, a low sound that soon faded into silence, indicating the message had been sent. "Now we wait," Lysara said, turning to Tom. "It could take hours or days for them to respond. They'll be cautious, analyzing the signal's origin and content before making a move." Tom nodded, his gaze lingering on the array of alien technology that felt so out of place in the primitive cave. "And if they decide to come in full force? We'll negotiate. With the research proposal and proof of my safety, we have a chance to turn this into a diplomatic engagement rather than a conflict." Lysara's voice was firm, her confidence in her plan evident, yet her eyes betrayed a hint of uncertainty. As they settled in to wait, Tom took the first watch, his senses attuned to the sounds of the waterfall and the wildlife outside. Lysara tried to rest, her mind racing with potential scenarios of her people's arrival. Hours passed, the only change the subtle shift of light as dawn approached. Then the communication device beeped softly. A signal received. Lysara was immediately alert, moving to the device to read the incoming message. "They've agreed to talk," she announced, relief evident in her tone. "They're sending a diplomatic envoy, not a military one. It seems they're willing to listen." Tom let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "That's good news. It gives us some room to maneuver." "Yes, but we must prepare. We need to set the terms clearly and ensure they understand the value of what we're proposing." Lysara's mind was already turning to the next steps, planning the meeting, the presentations, and the negotiations. They spent the next few days preparing, Tom learning more about Zeltron technology and diplomacy, while Lysara fine-tuned the presentation of their research proposal. The cave transformed from a mere hiding spot into a negotiation chamber, equipped with holographic displays and translation devices. When the day of the meeting arrived, a small Zeltron craft landed discreetly a few kilometers from the cave. The envoy, a team of diplomats and scientists, was escorted by Tom to the waterfall, where Lysara awaited their arrival with a dignified composure. The negotiations were lengthy, with detailed discussions and exchanges of information. Lysara presented the joint research proposal, emphasizing Earth's unique properties and the potential benefits for Zeltron science. The diplomats were intrigued, their initial caution giving way to interest and even excitement. As the talks concluded, agreements were drafted and a new partnership was forged. The Zeltron diplomats agreed to respect Earth's sovereignty and proceed with the joint research under strict guidelines. In return, Earth would gain insights into Zeltron technology and protection under their advanced defense systems. Tom and Lysara watched as the Zeltron craft departed, a sense of accomplishment mingling with the anticipation of what was to come. They had not only averted a potential crisis, but had also laid the groundwork for a future that bridged the stars.